I would definitely reduce the number of reports to one per feature maximum. I mean, maybe not even every feature needs a report at all. If there is no capacity to actually improve the feature, why do you even report on it? I mean, and also the kind of clear metrics for each report. So maybe 5 graphs. That maybe sounds a bit radical.
Welcome to Data Breakthroughs, the podcast where every episode starts with a mystery. My guest and I walk in blind. No clue what the problem is, no idea about the industry, and definitely not here to spend an hour debating tech stack. Instead, we unwrap a real problem from a real person, figure out what's actually going on, vanish for 15 minutes to think on our own, and then return to see if we can crack it live. It is part detective story, part improv challenge, and part let's see what breaks. No scripts, no preps, just curiosity, creativity, and a dash of chaos. Today, my partner in problem solving is the wonderful Eva. I'm super excited to have you here today. How's it going?
Thank you. I'm fine. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
I was hoping very much that you're going to agree to it when I sent a message. And when you replied, I was like, yes.
Thank you. That sets very high expectations.
We need to start with high expectations, I would say.
That's true.
Would you like to tell our listeners, who are you?
Yes. So yeah, I'm Eva. I'm head of data and analytics at Neugelb right now. Neugelb is part of Commerzbank, one of the big German banks. And Neugelb is, I always call it the tech hub of Commerzbank. So what we do is we build the mobile banking apps for Commerzbank. So you imagine Commerzbank is a huge corporate, and it's a German corporate. It's slow. Everything takes a lot of time. There's a lot of regulations. And I always, it feels like Neugelb is kind of the startup within Commerzbank. So we are very international. Our business language is English. We sit in Berlin, in Kreuzberg. So it feels very startup-y. And we built a mobile banking app, what is really cool. And I'm responsible, or my team and myself are responsible for everything data related. So data ingestion, data infrastructure, but then also analytics and insights, and ideally influencing stakeholders to take actions based on our insights.
Most important part, I think, of having data at the end of the day.
And sometimes the most challenging part, because you have to kind of give your baby over to the stakeholders, and then they do whatever they want with it.
We prepared for you a little bit of icebreakers, questions to get us warm towards the problem before we starting. And maybe we can start with the first one. Have you ever opened CSV and immediately closed it again?
God. Yeah, actually, I do, because I usually have to reopen it whenever I use DBT, because for whatever reason, the terminal is just always wrong when I open it. And instead of bothering to try to find out what is wrong, I always close it and then I open it again and then it works. Don't tell my data engineer.
Yeah, that's the beauty about it, right? It's ready, but it's not ready. And then you need to figure out where it stands. Then the second question we have here is, if you could add one silly filter to every dashboard, what would it be?
One silly filter. Okay, I would add, let me think about this. This is great. I think I would add time of the day, because without context, it doesn't mean anything. So people always love to think that stakeholders react differently during certain times of the days. And sometimes this is the case, but you need a lot of context for it. This filter will be completely useless without context.
The last question we have here is, if you could delete one buzzword from the data world forever, what would it be?
AI.
I will go with the Gene AI that's still hunting me. I don't understand how people call ML model Gene AI.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
There is so much, buzzing around that right now. And I always have the feeling people just don't want to put in the hard work of cleaning up data anymore. So
nobody cares about data. It's a waste of time.
Exactly.
Cool. Thank you very much for that. Are you ready to jump into our problem space for today?
Yes, I'm really, really excited and nervous, but I'm mostly excited.
So let me share the screen quickly and we can jump in. Second. Great. So I have no clue what is the problem behind here, to be honest.
Okay.
I haven't seen it. This is the producer picked for us, and we're going to have most likely a lot of fun when I'm going to reveal it.
Okay, let's see.
What is the main problem we are addressing? The product team receives large volumes of analytics output, 40 plus charts and table per report, but lacks clarity, actionable insights. Data is description rather than perspective, leaving product managers unsure which features to prioritize. Without actionable recommendation, product decisions slow down, features at risk being prioritized based on opinion rather than evidence, and the business losses time and money on low impact initiatives. Ultimately, the disconnect reduces trust in the analytics fraction and its value to the product organization.
Well, that's interesting. I love that problem. It's so real.
I think that I'm 90% of the time advocating for stopping these emotional decisions about initiatives.
Yeah,
It's touching exactly this pain.
exactly. Yeah. I've seen that so often already.
And I see already we have a very nice commodity that we usually don't get. It's also the industry and the stage of the company, which I see here they added. But let's go first to the situation. A mid-sized product company with a growing mobile app user base, the analytics team produces a report upon request, but doesn't own the influence prioritization frameworks. Product managers rely on intuition or incomplete data storytelling to decide roadmap items. Been there, seen that. The trigger leadership begin require data-backed justification for all major product decisions, sprint planning, roadmaps, alignment. This increased the demand for analytics, but exposed the gap between raw reporting and actionable guidance. That's nice. The tension, leadership questions, why investment in analytics aren't accelerating decision making.
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely.
In the boundaries, we have not about tooling limitations. Reports are generated quickly and comprehensively, but still, I think it is about the tooling and limitations by what they discussing here.
Yeah.
There is a tech stack that giving us mixed panel, SQL-based internal database queries, and Locker as a last result. So the visualization, I guess. And then we get a little bit more information. It's an industry, it's a mobile application, B2C, subscription plus ad-supported models. And then the stage is growth stage company, 200 plus employees, 2 to 5 million active app users. So we get quite a nice information already about the size of the company and what they facing. I can already estimate the number of data people they have there.
How many would you think are there? I would actually go with probably 5.
5 to 7 most likely.
Yeah,
Well, it's one team that do it all, right? It's the engineers, the analytics engineering, and the analysts themselves.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, interesting. They don't say anything if they have, for example, DBT or anything, but I think right now this is also not that relevant for to solve the problem. It's more like how the team is set up, because I always have the feeling that especially smaller teams, when they have DBT, then the whole team setup is slightly different, because then pipeline building doesn't only rely on the data engineers, but there are also analysts that do it. They build their own models. And I think this usually then just changes the dynamics within the team. But yeah, it's not relevant right now for this. But interesting, very interesting problem definition.
Yeah. And I think this is a pattern I saw quite often. A lot of business people know Mixpanel. A lot of people know the visualization tool they are using. And in the middle, it's usually blank. There is an SQL service. Something happens there. I don't know how it happens. And they also don't sometimes understand the complete pipeline. So data is not just being transferred, right? And I think this is, again, one of these gaps in knowledge that we identify quite often. And the data team rarely addresses and try to explain it, or unable to actually explain these terms to people.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like, or it sounds like, kind of they also wouldn't know how they monitor data quality,
Looks like that.
because there is nothing mentioned about kind of quality of data. What with mobile apps, it's with product analytics in general, it's always an issue. Interesting. Okay.
So our job now is to take the information we have and create some clarity statement. What are we actually gonna solve? What is the problem we see in here? And would you like to start and suggesting something maybe, and we can have a discussion about it.
Yes, I think so. I would like to focus on building trust in with stakeholders because it doesn't sound like it's a problem of speed of delivery because reports are generated quickly and comprehensively. Honestly, I think there are too many reports generated and the business drowns in data and they don't actually know what to do with it. I actually think I would so the yeah, I think what I would like to address is the how to work with the stakeholders to actually solve their problems rather than just being an analytics as a service function. It sounds a bit like this.
I agree,
Yeah.
but I think there is one thing that we should remember: the leadership is questioning. So there is also pressure from the leadership, and this is also something that we need to figure out maybe how we communicate value
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
our discussion, because we can solve the communication issue, we can solve or we can address basically the need to reduce the dashboards and making it a little bit clearer, but at the end of the day it's also need to show the leadership that there is a change. Otherwise, most likely this is the tipping point, right? If leadership starting to investigate or ask why they invested so much money, I would also add this one. What do you say?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think, I mean, it's hard to say, but I would guess if the stakeholders, so the product teams, the product managers, if they would start making their decisions based on data, leadership would already kind of see that and would already kind of sense the value of the team more. But yeah, of course, we should also address the leadership team kind of directly and also maybe make sure what the role of the team is, because it sounds like it's a dashboard factory team. This is how it sounds, and nobody wants that, but this is how a lot of teams end up, right? They just produce dashboards because they are requested. I mean, it also says here the analytics team produces reports upon request, but doesn't own or influence prioritization frameworks. So this sounds also like they actually need to have that mandate to decide what they're working on based on their expertise.
A bit afraid here because there is nothing about automation. They
No.
produce in dashboard based on request. So there is also this part that it's in the problem,
Yeah.
how you actually making it a little bit more valuable.
Yeah. Especially with Mixpanel. I mean, this is interesting. I've never worked with Mixpanel myself, but I know roughly what it is doing. And I mean, Mixpanel is rather a tool for product managers than for analysts. So with Mixpanel, product managers could actually, for example, look at a user flow or a conversion rate already themselves. But it feels like they're still not getting to a point where they can then where they then feel confident making a decision based on this. So
So
yeah,
I think there is a sub problem in here as well. So it's less about the tool, but it's more about the process, right? So if most likely they're downloading the data or they importing the data into the data warehouse, they're processing it. Maybe they even have different numbers between mixed panel and whatever they see on their
very sure they have. Yeah.
warehouse. We have here too many problems, but we don't deal with this one. We have our clarity statement, and we can address it maybe later on. And if you are ready, we're going to go
Yes, I am.
now into a 15 minutes off camera. And I see you back here in 15. Eva, we are back after 15 minutes break and brainstorming. How was it?
It was really interesting because it's quite close to my current situation. So we have a mobile app. It's kind of there is some sort of analysis paralysis with kind of too many dashboards in the past and people just didn't look at them anymore. So I always try to zoom out and look at the actual problem statement and not think too much about my situation. So it was really interesting. How did you find it?
Oh, so I said that I saw this problem so many times before and I had so many ideas how to solve it. That's the one thing. But also at the same time, I kept going back to the problem statement that we created in the clarity seminar. I was like, are we actually answer? Am I actually answering it with my brainstorming? This was one of my main concerns. And we're going to see in a minute.
Yeah.
Would you like to start presenting your brainstorming section?
Yes. Yes. So, um, I think I would like to start with the concerns. I only have two, but I think they are big ones. So one, at least what I read from the problem definition is that there is actually not a lack of data, but it's too many data. And I think this sometimes turns companies into that analysis paralysis where nobody looks at data anymore. Data is considered difficult, slow, not helpful, just too much. So and this kind of this leads to the next concern, because I think this is just how people react after a while. They just get used to decide on features or on decisions without data backup, without insights. And then, I mean, a lot of those decisions might be good decisions still. And then they realize, oh, maybe I don't need data actually to make my decisions because it worked the last time. So maybe this time I can also decide without data. And I think this is kind of a spiral. And this is what is really tricky. I think if companies get less data driven after a while because they just don't have the data in the right format at the right time to support their decisions. I think these are the main concerns that I have here, is that it's kind of just too much, too much data actually, and too much almost unstructured data and unstructured analytics outputs. So it feels like there is not a clear definition how to measure the performance of features, because otherwise, I mean, so leaving product managers unsure which features to prioritize, this feels like they might have some things like active users or maybe ad revenue, because they have that ad supported model and the subscription model in their mobile app. But it feels like, or at least to me, product analytics quite often is you look at conversion per feature, and every feature has a different conversion definition, right? So what is the entry point? What is the first intent for each user? And then what is even the conversion point where you actually say, now the user got it? And this is hard because for every feature, you have to define that conversion rate. I think one of the quick wins would be, for me, I would sit with a PM and I would just ask them, how would they define, just out of just gut feeling kind of, how would they define the performance of their feature? When do they think their feature is working? So this is one thing I would do, because this also already establishes trust with the PMs, because they have the feeling the analyst really wants to understand their issues. This leads to the next one, that I would find one strategic feature and really understand the problem space here. And then instead of doing a dashboard, I would actually do an ad hoc analysis, because this helps you to really focus on one problem, on one time frame, or on one kind of time. And you can go much deeper into it. And you can also, when you then present it, you can describe it much better, because with dashboards, it's always very generic, right? The graph has to hold for every possible situation. But with a good presentation, with an ad hoc analysis, you can actually, I think, do much more. And then something that I really like is I would also maybe do A/B tests with a feature, a very simple one. It can just be a copy change on a button, right? But kind of to also show PMs, but also the leadership, what is actually within the scope of that team. And I mean, they have Mixpanel. Mixpanel has add-ons for A/B tests. I mean, it's really hard to say from the outside if the infrastructure would be ready for this. I don't know. For example, we use Google Firebase directly to do the A/B tests there. But I think this is something where the analysts could also suggest a lot of things to optimize the product. Yeah, I would definitely reduce the number of reports to one per feature maximum. I mean, maybe not even every feature needs a report at all. If there is no capacity to actually improve the feature, why do you even report on it? I mean, and also the kind of clear metrics for each report. So maybe 5 graphs. That maybe sounds a bit radical, but let's start with it, and then it will get bigger anyway. I actually would, as the main graph, I would actually look at funnels, because I think this is what usually is easiest for people to understand how a feature performs, is when you look at all the people that want to use that feature and then how many end up that actually use it. And I think it also makes it very easy for stakeholders to understand the performance. Yeah, I would definitely, I think, go with more ad hoc analysis instead of dashboards in general, just as a trend. I would also do regular reporting or report cleanup sessions, because it just sounds like nobody looks at old dashboards and reports anymore, or the analysts forget them and the stakeholders still work with them, and nobody is actually sure if the data quality holds up. So this is always an issue. And I think from a team setup, it sounds like they would profit from having analysts dedicated to product areas. So having maybe an analyst embedded in a product team. But this is one of my constraints, that quite often this means that then we have that situation exactly again where the analyst just takes every request at kind of face value and just produces every dashboard that the PM gives them, rather than being the sparring partner for the PM. So this needs a certain seniority of the analysts, and it's not, I don't question it, but it's just not visible from the problem statement, kind of how the team is set up. Yeah, I think this was mainly my brainstorming area. What about you?
Cool. So I really like when you said, and you mentioned like there is too much data, because I used to be from these people who went in the past and said, collect everything, make sure you have all the data and maximize it as much as possible. And I was in a conference and I met some architect of T-Mobile.
Yep.
And then when I said it, he looked at me and he was very shocked. And I remember that he told me like, come, let me show you what it means having all data. Because they really had a very strong team. And he opened the dashboard and he's like, you see what's going on here now? And he showed me, I think they had like 600 or 700 reports, and each of them had a name of somebody responsible for that.
God.
And he said, we have all data, so we can do whatever we want with it, right? But that was not the result. And actually it created a messier environment for everybody to work at. With this one point that I really like that you mentioned, also why we're doing it. And I think here again, we have a lot of crossing in our thinking, and let me also present mine. And I think that this is basically, many times we do things without thinking about it, without trying to stop and evaluate it. And while you said, let's rethink the dashboard, I went in a little bit more radical thinking approach, I think. In my quick wins, I wrote down, first of all, map all the existing dashboards. Let's start with understanding what's going on there. And I don't know what we're going to find out. I know that I've been to organizations that when we map the dashboard, all of a sudden we found out that we have a lot of dashboards. Some of them are very, very tiny and with very little impact, but people said I have data and I'm using it. So let's start with mapping, understanding what's going on there. And then from there, basically create an executive dashboard, max of 5 KPIs. So try to create something for the product with very, very narrow KPIs that you can start with and understand where you're going and make a decision based on it. Because I think that this is my perspective, is like, it's a super important part that we tend to forget. We just having a lot of dashboards, they're running everywhere and everybody have his own silo. It's creating a silo basically. And let's bring them all together and talk about the same KPIs. And then instead of running and building a dashboard, actually maybe start with an Excel sheet even before you even doing the dashboards, while everything is running there, and force people to actually work in a separate environment, because the environment right now is very cluttered. It's like going into the forest, you're going to get lost. So break it out, move to a different tool. So this was like my quick wins, because I think there's things that you can actually do quite quickly and it doesn't require an extensive. So this in 30 days area.
Yeah.
In the 30 to 60 days, in my view, it's remove dashboards with low value. So understanding basically what is high value, what is low value, by asking 5 W's questions, as I call it. It's like the why we need it, what will it make me do? So when I'm going to see this dashboard going up or going down, so the trend changes, what actions will it drive me actually? And many cases, people won't be able to answer it, so you can remove them. And then, of course, when we need it and who needs it and who it's going to impact. So trying to understand basically also the environment of the dashboard and understand what is the impact of it. And by it, we can remove quite a lot of the dashboard. So this is the 30 to 60 days, because it's going to take us a while. Then I also add here in these ideas a little bit of establish a process for data request. How do you approve new dashboards? How do you approve new data? I think this is something that is missing. And while it's not addressing directly the management demand, it's going to reduce the weight and the amount of work that the analysts are doing. So it meaning that something is working well. We're not just throwing figs on the wall and trying to make them stick. And then also asking an async board for users to map their data. I think that after we remove the dashboard, a lot of people are going to freak out because now they're going to realize they're missing some information. But then we can bring them back into an async board, put there the data you need, why do you need it, force them into this thinking of strategic thinking about data, and try to figure out from there what's going to happen. And create a process for each dashboard to have a monetary value in some way. So by having this data, this is what it's actually mean for me. And what that core data should be there that's going to make it valuable for them. Other than that, I had some other ideas of defined process for data initiative. I think this is, again, bringing everybody to think together. So I have a process that's going to unify it and make people think about it, create a weekly sync between product and data. So bringing them back together, this is very similar to what you said about the embedded analyst. I also added in here, embedded analyst in the product team. I'm a bit also concerned about it because I think then it's becoming an I'm part of the I'm part of the product team. I need to satisfy them, and this is also creating a risk of creating more dashboards again. So it's more of a weekly meeting. Here is our findings over data. Let's figure out what we can do with it, and also data request like a product flow. There is a backlog. There is in progress. We're defining what we're taking for this sprint or not. So it's making it a little bit tougher to arrive there. And then it's also raising more questions from people. Do you actually need this dashboard? Or can I prioritize something else that has a higher impact? And it's already changing the conversation, I want to hope. In my concerns, I had few of them. So first of all, is process is missing for decision and evaluation of action. So how do we actually, what is an action? How do we know how there is something that is missing here that I think we need to make it clearer. Ownership is also missing. There is an issue. I didn't put myself a time, and I think I already arrived to the 5 minutes. So I'm going to do quickly. Speed is not an issue. This is what they mentioned, but the value is. So how do we do that? It's still a concern. Product managers don't, they have overload because they have too much data. How do you actually balancing it with giving them the right data and not the wrong data, and also giving them something that is bringing value in the concerns and in the constraints, time management. So the moment the management or the leadership started to ask questions, I believe that there is some time box for fixing it, and we need to take it into consideration when we going into the solution as well.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. I had one more idea that actually could also serve as a quick win. I was at the meetup yesterday, and one of the panelists mentioned that, and I really liked it, is try to give every task or every request, try to monetize it. So let's say, even with monopoly money or something, but let's say, okay, if you want this dashboard, it will cost 20 hours of analytics time, and then of course maybe you just add a bit for the infrastructure costs, whatever. And then let's see if they say, oh, yeah, we still need it. Because I think quite often stakeholders don't, or they underestimate how long actually things will take. I mean, I also had this a while ago that one of my senior stakeholders asked me to just change a dashboard to have more historical data. And I said, yeah, I can do this. But to be actually sure that the data is still valid, it would take me roughly 2 days to do it. And he was, no, then please, 2 days, really? No, then don't do it. And I was, wow, 2 days is not a lot of, it's not even a big task, but apparently even that was too much already. And there wasn't the value in it. Then I didn't do it. I think this is also something that analysts should probably be much more open about, how long it will actually take.
I think that when I worked at Zalando, there was a request that the team received for some data. And we realized it's going to take us around a week to get it because it was very unstructured and we didn't know even what is the quality of it. And when we said, yeah, it's going to take us a week to come back, they was like, no, never mind. We don't need it. And they just argued a few minutes before that it's super urgent and super important. And from now to then, it's like, 1 week, no, then we don't need it.
Yeah, exactly.
And we too often we're trying to satisfy, and this is something that I'm always saying, we're going to emotions rather than rational. if we have what is actually going to cost us and what is the impact of it, and are you convinced that it's making sense, it's making it a little bit easier, the conversation, rather than I feel this is an important data for me.
Exactly.
So we finished our brainstorming area. This is the time to go down into the funnel and try to reduce it into 3 insights, 3 action points that we're going to move on from here. I will turn again the camera off, 5 minutes, and we see each other to have a discussion about the key insights and key actions. We are back. I see you have 3 insights and 3 action points. Would you like to start presenting them?
Yes, I would love to. I think insight 1 for me is there might be a need for less data, but relevant ones. Insight 2 is that giving stakeholders everything they want might not actually be what they need. And I think, analysts that try to be extra helpful might end up not being helpful at all. And insight 3 is that I think in that situation, it might be easier to show the value of the team and the analysis function by doing ad hoc or one-off analysis or deep dives instead of more dashboards. And the 3 actions that I would suggest is, make sure your stakeholders understand the amount of work that goes into a request. But just, for example, visualizing the hours or the needed data or whatever, so just that they get a feeling for how much time it or how much work it will be. Then question the requests and make sure the problem and the scope is well understood. And also ask what the stakeholders do with the results, because I see that quite often that they want to see everything about a feature, but if they don't have the capacity to act on the insights, then it might be actually easier to scope it down to something very small, because then it's rather nice to have than actionable. And the third action item is, I think, moving closer to product, either by regular check-ins, as you suggested, or by also maybe a change of team structure, depending on what is possible, might also help to actually get to a point where the team will work on more relevant requests.
So I see we are quite similar in some of the points here. We have some alignment. The first point from my side, it's too much data does not mean good decisions. I think this is a very important rule to take from here. The second part is placing the monetary value. I think it's really important, and we're tending to ignore it, but having this monetary value next to a dashboard, next to a data set, whatever we do, is simplifying our life, because it's allowing us actually to measure how complex it is, or how value it's giving to the users. The third insight for me is ask always what it will make me do when I see the trend changes. And I think this is the key part of understanding the impact, right? From action perspective, I have create executive dashboard. I think this is something that is easy, it's quick, it's not taking much time, and you can already create it. Second point is evaluate why the data is needed and how it impacts. And this is another action point that is quite easy to execute. Then the third one is define process to approve new data initiatives. In these 3 points, I think in the 90 days period, you can do it quite easy and you can actually execute it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, nice.
Now we have another funnel in front of us, and we need to take these 6 insights, sorry, and refine them into 3 insights we would like to take out of it. Would you like
I
to
think.
suggest your first one?
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of overlap already between our insights. I would go with your framing that too much data does not mean good decisions. Um, I would use that one definitely. That's already covers my first insight. Um, then, yeah, interestingly for you, it's an insight. For me, so yeah, my action item 1 or your insight 2 is kind of covering the same. So make sure your stakeholders understand the amount of work.
I'm
Yeah,
taking the action point from you, I would say. I think it's important, and I think we tending to forget it. So it's always good
yeah,
to have a reminder for that.
definitely. Yeah, I like your third insight. Ask always what it will make me do when I see the trend changes. Stakeholders want to justify their actions with data, but data should actually should actually be used to drive actions instead of justifying past actions, right? So
I would like to take the ad hoc one-off analysis. I think it's also a very good insight to take away from here. And then we have 3 key insights to take out of here.
yes,
Now the question is, what are the 2 extra actions we're adding?
the actions.
I think the move closer to products.
Yeah,
From the
I
data
like this
perspective, I
one.
think it's
Yeah,
important.
and I would do the executive dashboard, your first action item. I think because it's a quick win, it's always interesting. I mean, you said it's easy to do. I will only partially agree, because I think this means that there has to be an alignment and an understanding of metrics and what a metric actually means. And this is, especially on executive level, sometimes surprisingly hard. So what is an active user, for example? It sounds so easy, but if that hasn't been defined yet, this might take a while. But yeah, within 90 days, definitely.
I agree. I made it sound easy. I know it's not, but I think that when we're talking about the quick win, it's like, let's just do it, right? Let's find out what are these 5 KPIs that just going to make us move forward as a starting point. And I know that after this 5, you're going to have all of a sudden 8, and then it's going to jump to 10, and then a 20, and then somebody going to say, okay, no, it's not working anymore, and they're going to go back to 5. It's this cycle that happens, but I think it's a quite important part to add in here.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I think also, I mean, this is a subscription-based and ad-supported model for a mobile app. It's also not rocket science, right? You can look up how big companies that have a similar model, what they have as their key metrics or their main KPIs, and you could just see if that would fit to your business. I think you don't have to invent everything from scratch.
Agree. Any less famous words?
No, I mean, I really liked it. I have so much questions about that company and kind of would like to have even more data points to maybe come up with better suggestions. But I like that exercise a lot. Yeah, it was really cool.
But if whoever submitted this problem wants to reach out to either of us, feel free on LinkedIn. Would you like to tell people where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn. I think that would be easiest, because how to say that, I remove myself more and more from other social media, but yeah, LinkedIn is still where everyone can find me.
Cool. Eva, thank you very much for joining this session.
It was a pleasure. It was really fun.
Yes, I really enjoyed it, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye. That's a wrap on another Data Breakthroughs session. If you enjoyed watching us tackle this problem, we would love to solve yours next. Head to the link in the show notes to submit your data challenge. You could be featured in an upcoming episode. If you're a data professional who wants to join me in the problem-solving hot seat, there is a guest form too. Thanks for listening, and I will see you in the next breakthrough. Bye-bye.